Today, a state funeral was held at the Washington National Cathedral, attended by all 5 living presidents. For more perspective now, we want to bring in Dave Lucas, a longtime anchor at 7 News and someone who was a reporter at Carter's inauguration in 1977. Great to have you, Dave.
Great to be here. I was struck watching the events of the day by a couple of things, not the least of which was just the the U.S. does a pretty good job of putting on one of those unfortunate events, and it was a very moving and stirring event today. The other thing was that in 11 days, it will have been 47 years since I was a reporter in Charleston, South Carolina, and talked my way into coming up and covering the first inauguration of an American Southern president in a very long time. And we did, and it was quite a thing. The inaugural committee, when we were checking in to get our credentials, was looking through all the stuff that the administration to be had given us, and they said, "Boy, you guys have all kinds of great things." We went to the inaugural ball. We went to a whole bunch of things like that. That ordinarily our relatively insignificant position probably wouldn't have ordinarily allowed us. But we got a very close look at what was an amazing thing. And I was struck today by the fact that that era came to an end today. But I also was struck by the fact that an awful lot of people there made a tremendous contribution to the United States. Jimmy Carter was a lot of things. He unfortunately will be remembered for the hostages that were taken by the Iranians and a sort of lackluster economy. But he did remarkable things in the White House, and it was his third act. He was a naval officer. He was the president of the United States. And then for a little, almost half of his life, he was this amazing American who went around the world doing all kinds of remarkable things. He supervised elections. He was an unofficial ambassador. Habitat for Humanity is something that he'll be remembered for long beyond many of the other accomplishments. This was an amazing guy.
Dave, because he was 100 years old when he passed away, such a huge birthday that he was able to celebrate, he also planned much of the ceremonies that happened over the past few days, including asking President Biden to deliver the eulogy.
I think he became aware of the importance of his, not just his presidency, but the arc of his life. And he wanted to make sure that people understood that, because Jimmy Carter left Washington after losing to Ronald Reagan, as close to a bitter guy as he ever got. And I don't claim to have known him, but from talking to other people, including Stuart Eisenstadt, who knew him very well, that hurt him very deeply. And he wanted very much for people to have remembered his successes, not just the things that didn't necessarily go his way. And again, it was the last part of his life that was just such a remarkable achievement, a singular achievement. He was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, too, after he was president of the United States. So many things that Jimmy Carter did exceedingly well, and for which he is deservedly remembered.
One of the things that stood out to me was how consistent the remarks were when talking about character and decency. You heard that over and over throughout everyone's remarks today. And I was also struck by hearing that he taught Sunday school from World War II to COVID. You think of the amount of history that goes by, and his faith always guided him.
A very good point, I think, to make here. That was the cornerstone of his life. I also remember that when he was elected president, Time magazine, which almost a half century ago was sort of the Bible as a news magazine, they devoted an entire issue to conservative Christianity, which for a lot of people was something they had no real basis of understanding. We take it as sort of an article of faith now that this is one of the great Christian religions, but it was almost a half century ago not that at all, and it took a bit of learning on the part of Time magazine, or teaching maybe, to explain to people what fundamental Christians believe then and now, and the remarkable force that was the driving force in his life. And I think if you asked, had the ability to ask the former president what was the central thing in his life, he'd say his wife, his family, and his faith.
And
Yeah.
Dave, so we have, in less than 2 weeks, we have a new president coming on. So we have President Biden leaving after one term, like President Jimmy Carter, and Trump coming in for a second term, not consecutive. Where do you think things stand in D.C. when it comes to the changing politics that are happening?
The old journalistic cop out is only time will tell, and I think we would, but I think it absolutely obtains here. I think it holds. I thought it was very interesting today, sort of the outward and visible sign. The former presidents talked among themselves. There was camaraderie there. It was Barack Obama who really was the only person who paid any attention to Donald Trump, and they appeared to have, sort of a small talk, but the former president smiled. The incoming former and incoming president also smiled too. But there's no question that there was Donald Trump here and all the rest of the former presidents over here. He's part of the club, but he wasn't necessarily a member in good standing, it seemed to me today. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue, Dave, because we're about to look at some of that video again. But we do want to thank you for your time and for joining us. And it's always great to have a friend come back.
Thanks. And I'll be up there for the inauguration here shortly. So maybe make some room for me at the desk.
Absolutely. January 20th, we'll be waiting for you.
Your seat's always warm. All right. Thank you, Dave.